This is the Wealthy Investor Show, where we don't just talk about your wealth, we also talk about your holistic health. I'm your host, Matias.
And I'm Erica.
And this is the Wealthy Investor.
I am here with Chase Lauderback. Chase is a good friend of mine. He's been a partner in some deals. He has been a co-leader of an investment group local to the Harrisburg-Rockingham area. Chase grew up in Page County and had some real estate surroundings as he grew up, but kind of got into it himself in college. I won't get into that too much in detail because I'd like you to talk about it, but has really, I feel like you are a well of information. You have done a lot of courses, a lot of mastermind, a lot of different things that give you a very deep understanding of real estate investing world. So I'm really excited to have you on. Do you want to talk a little bit about your journey of getting to be to where you are now, like where you started and background and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to get tired of hearing the story since we talk about it a lot in the meetups and everything. But I basically started in college. I'd saved up money from working a summer job, and I had just an opportunity come up where you had to be a first-time home buyer. There's a price range where I could work it out with what I'd saved up. And yeah, I bought it with the plans of fixing it up and renting it out. And then throughout the course, I held it for about 2 years, and the renters moved out. They trashed it and ended up deciding to sell it as opposed to doing that. So that was around the same time when I was going towards graduate school, and it just didn't make sense for me. One, I wasn't sure I'd like it. I was going to go a whole lot of debt on. And then two, I just saw what that provided. And I was like, that's a really nice check. And I had fun doing it. And so
You were in school for physical therapy.
so I graduated from Virginia Tech with a bachelor's of science in human nutrition, foods, and exercise.
Okay. The grad school was going to be
Physical therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you flipped a house and you got a nice paycheck. You're like, yeah, that was, I could do that again.
Yeah. And then so I moved back, and then we ended up buying, a deal, and my parents have some history with rental property as well. And so I partnered with them on it, and that turned out to be a lesson. We made money on it, but it just took multiple years actually. So it was about a year and a half to renovate it. It was a bigger project, and then almost another year and a half to sell it. The market was much slower back then. So I flipped some stuff during that time too, but yeah, definitely learned some lessons that way about subbing things out and the whole process and everything, because everything was hands-on.
Sure. Yeah. You've done a lot more hands-on than I have, and you're not doing it all now, but that's, certainly something to understand it better. You probably have a better understanding. Like, I think you talked to me about some of the different things that you do regularly on your projects. I'm like, I have not done anything.
Yeah.
I haven't even painted a house yet. And I personally, that my approach for that has been that it's been a side gig for my investing so far, since my main thing is sales. And I thought to have longevity in it, I don't want to be burning myself out by, unclogging toilets for rentals or whatever. I don't think I'm right in that. I just think that's been the path that I've taken. From there, tell me more about like your interest in real estate, what kind of paths you took in learning and practice.
Yeah. So I would just like to say that I think you're 100% right. You should not be tearing down walls and painting walls and unclogging toilets. So I think my frustration was back then when I started, I was trying very hard to get away from that. And I felt like I was the type of person that needed to do everything. That's something I still struggle with. But from there, I just continued to flip houses. I would flip a couple and use those proceeds to buy a rental property, or if the property was, just a great deal, essentially doing the BRRRR method, buying it, renovating it, renting it, refinancing it. I think that was around the same time it became a buzzword, or maybe right before it became a buzzword when I started doing that.
Thanks, Braden Turner.
Yeah. So from there, I just, it wasn't anything overnight. I just saw how the rental property was, how the work was for it, how the cash flow was for it. And it's like, in my experience, you're not making a lot of money from it. You're getting the equity appreciation, you're getting tax benefits, but you are, at the end of the day, my goal was to have financial freedom through cash flow. And I didn't see that happening. You're not getting enough equity appreciation to where you can refinance out every so often to make yourself live for free. And you're not having the cash flow to do it either. you have one big repair and it wipes out all the whole year, maybe even more than a year of cash flow. So I knew I had to transition to something else. And my options were, at the time, I could try to continue to scale the flipping business. I'm from Page County. There's only so much inventory. So I knew that if I wanted to scale that, I was going to have to expand in other counties, probably go up to 45 minutes an hour or plus away. And there's more overhead people I'd have to hire and everything like that. And I think back then I also just couldn't wrap my head around finding somebody to do some of these jobs, like the project management and everything else like that. So I just saw that as an option. Otherwise, I was going to have to find something else in real estate that was going to actually get what my goals were originally.
Sure.
And I don't know what originally piqued me on it, but was commercial investing. And so I came across, originally it was apartments. And I did some mentorships and boot camps and stuff with apartments, and just really took quite a few months digging deep and spending some time on that. But ultimately what happened with me with that was I saw that basically when you get into those, you have equity splits. So there's the general partnership group for those that don't know. You've got the general partnership group that actually finds the property, does all the due diligence, does the operations, does the value add turnaround, and they get a certain percentage of the ownership. And then the investors that are private, also known as the limited partnership, who, they contribute the bulk of the finance, not the finance, but the equity for it. They don't have any say in it, but they get the other slice, which is, the apartment world could be anywhere from 60% for the limited partnership to 70%. And that was when I was looking at it. It could be even more. And it just really depended on what the deal would allow. So, some would go less than that, but that was generally normal. And so you're getting 30 to 40%, and the general partnership is multiple people. So depending on how that's broken down, you could have a very low percentage ownership. Sure. And it was very hard to find deals that made sense. As we're kind of seeing now, not a secret, there's a lot of apartment syndicators that are having issues.
Right.
And so you're having to stretch numbers. It was tough to find deals. And back then too, it was like, unless you had an in with somebody, or you were paying somebody like $20,000 to $50,000 for mentorship to basically have them buy it from you and give you like 5% of the deal or something small. It didn't make any sense. So I was like, I need to find something that has more cash flow too, because they were all about you getting an acquisition fee, you getting a property management fee, and then you getting the sell on the back end. So during that whole period, you're not really getting much for the general partnership. So then I was looking at self-storage, and then the other asset class that came up was mobile home parks. And so I have an interesting background in that I am a second generation owner. My parents have a mobile home park, and they've had it for 30 years. And it was just something that when I was growing up, I occasionally helped with that, with fixing up homes, cleaning out really bad homes. I even did like a Lonnie deal, which is like, you sell or finance a home to somebody at a park, when I was like just before 15 or something.
Oh, wow.
I hated. There would be cockroaches in there. It was gross. It was nasty. And so it's just funny that I wanted nothing to do with it, and that's the route I'm going, and I love it too.
Yeah.
So
I think I've described it as like maybe not the sexiest of investment, but not the one that if you're going into a party that you're going to be necessarily like, it feels different. Like it's the whole like breaking into like the slumlord kind of like world, where I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm just saying that like there's perception there from what people have assumed things about you, assume that whatever, but in reality, it really fills the need. It's a very affordable option for the people that are living there. And as we know, housing affordability is a huge problem right now.
Yeah. Where else are you going to find a brand new house for $1,000, roughly, give or take some, that you can move right into?
Yeah.
But even then at that point though, I was still trying to decide between those two assets. And ultimately what it came down to was I knew more about mobile home parks. I think a lot of the same issues that self-storage is great, mobile home parks are great. And I just think a little bit of the supply constraints too is a little bit easier to build self-storage. So that's why I ultimately went with it. I just knew a little bit more.
Sure.
And it felt like it resonated better with me. So
let's dig into a little bit about the syndication structure, if you don't mind. I think it might be helpful to explain a little bit what all that looks like. So you touched on it there. So, just to reiterate, a person, a general partners, it could be multiple people, will find an opportunity that usually you could consider it like a flip in a bigger scale, at a commercial scale, a place that could with mobile home parks, if I understand it correctly, it could be that you can add more lots of infill. That's something that you could talk about here in a little bit. It could be that you could improve the property to make it more desirable and get higher rents. It could be that the owner has just mismanaged it for a long time and is not able to get premium rent or just even market rent at all. Either they haven't tried to, or they just have run the thing into the ground a little bit. A lot of times people are burnt out, and that's kind of where the problem comes about. And so, kind of like flipping a property, you're going in and you're improving it. Like the BRRRR method we talked about, you're able to revitalize a property, get it to be up to kind of nicer standards, nicer for everybody, and in turn get more money coming in from the deal, which then with cap rates and everything and commercial financing makes it worth more. And so as an investor, I would say, here, Chase, I trust your plan with this mobile home park. I want to invest in this opportunity. So tell me a little bit about what that would look like. So I want to invest in your mobile home park.
Yeah. I don't want to speak to our specific structure
Sure.
too much, but I can just give like kind of the general overviews, because depending on what operator and what, as much as you need to love the deal, you need to love the person who's also operating it, knowing that they can execute on the deal. So depending on which operator you go with, there's different structures, hold periods. So how that generally looks is there is an equity split. So whatever that is that you're looking for, it could be, similar to the apartment structure. If it's a more, I would say class A type deal, or, if it's a larger deal and the returns aren't quite the same. If it's something that's a little smaller, it's got more hair on the bow, or it's got more hair on it, then, expect to have more of the equity split in the GP's favor, because they're going to have to do a lot more work.
Sure.
But I think the big thing for limited partners, you want to make sure that it's people you trust, it's a deal you love, and they're properly incentivized.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these will look in the form of, some form of promote. So some percentage return that's returned to the investor before anything else goes to be a split.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, once the capital event happens, being a refinance or a sell, and your money is returned, then everything goes to the promote structure, which let's say it was 30% GP and 70% to the LP. That promote would then go that way. So any profit gets split that way. I've also seen waterfall structures or other different types of structures where it might be maybe it's like, 40-60 or whatever that goes to, where more goes to the GP because they're hitting their thresholds, they're getting rewarded better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an example of how to do that.
To break that down further, like it would, if I was an investor again looking in, and let's say I was interviewing multiple people, one of the things you said, it's important is to understand and trust the person that's operating the deal, the general partner, that they're going to do a good job. They have the plan, they have the experience. Other thing is that immediate cash on cash return. So I'm investing a certain amount, and they're projecting it that I'll be getting XYZ 5%, 9%, something on my money that I invest in the interim. And so this is going to be the money that I'm getting while the flip is happening, while they are repositioning this property to make it more marketable. And then what you said, the capital event it could be a refinance, it could be a sale where the property is now more valuable. And so you can get the money that was invested in out either through a sale or through a refinance.
Yeah.
And then there's different ways of how I could still have ownership in the property or just get the money out.
A lot of those structures are just whatever the operator, depending on how they like to do things, the reputation, how they're structuring that, and, what your also requirements are. Like, is it a 5-year hold, or is this like
Mm-hmm.
a 5-year business plan, a 7-year, a 10-year? And so that's something to keep in mind too. There's a lot of different structures where it could be a longer hold period. I would say, in my personal opinion, the goal is, if I'm trying to have another flipping business,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise I would just say flipping houses.
Right.
So I think the goal is, when we're finding these deals, some are obviously going to sell. They're not going to make sense. But it's if you're doing that, get into a position where you're buying these assets, but you want to hold for the rest of your life.
Right.
So you and the investors you bring along with you should just be, staying with that property for the long haul.
I love it.
So
I love it. And just, and from an investor standpoint, such a win-win. It's great because, like, at the end of the day, you get your cash back, if all goes well, but you still have ownership in it, in that particular structure you mentioned. So that's awesome. The other thing that's really cool about it that, I think especially, well, to take a step back for a second, I think one of the things that's really interesting about realtors is that I don't think there's a big disconnect between the investing world and the realtor world. And I don't think many realtors really understand the investing world well. I'm not saying that every realtor needs to become a commercial realtor or understand all those things, but there are certain advantages of being a real estate professional for taxes that I think a lot more people could take advantage of. And I think, in this world where you are out there on your own, let's not get into lawsuits right now, but let's talk about like just how it is to not have a guaranteed paycheck, not have any kind of benefit. You are having to pay, in my case, like $1,600 a month in insurance. What's retirement? And there's no matching, there's nothing like that. And I think that we are in a position that we have abilities to pay for retirement through real estate, our expertise, and also the tax incentives with appreciation is my long-winded way of getting to the other benefit of syndication. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
I do. I think too, before I touch on that, I'd just like to say that, like, if you're an agent, you're doing well, you don't, like you're saying, you don't have a retirement program, but going back to the rental properties, you make money, 5 ways? You've got the cash flow, the mortgage pay down, the appreciation, you've got the depreciation. I'm forgetting what the fifth one is off the top of my head. But the point is that the cash flow is generally the least impactful of those.
Right.
And one of the most impactful is the depreciation. And being a real estate professional, you're able to actually take that, whereas other professions can't.
So it would be limited, and we're not tax professionals, but like there'd be a limit as to how much depreciation you could take if you're not a real estate professional.
According,
more or less what I understand. And so, yeah, with the beauty of this kind of syndication operation is that if you are a real estate professional, let's say you just want to sell houses, you can put money into a trusted syndication and get a good return on your investment, depending on the deal, of course. And then you can get the appreciation. And as a limited partner, I don't really have any stay in the deal that I'm invested in, but I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. I think what you're touching on is on a lot of these projects, we do cost segregations.
Yes.
So that you can accelerate the depreciation. With that, I would just say, if you're an LP and you're looking for that, then just make sure you know what the business plan is going in.
Yeah.
Depending on the project, what the time frame is, you may not do that. And make sure you talk with your CPA that you can realize those things, because that can vary person to person.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just to break it down so people who don't understand what that is, again, it may not apply to you. You need to double check and do your homework. But instead of taking your typical 27 years, for the real property, not the land, and dividing that up and putting it, depreciating that on your taxes, you're looking at, I'm just going to use a house because I don't really understand the mobile home world as well, but a house, you're going to take a refrigerator. The IRS has a certain lifespan on a refrigerator. So they'll say 7 years. So they're going to say the $1,000 refrigerator, divide that by 7, and then you can take that off on your taxes. And then if you compound that over all the things in the house, I again, not a CPA, not my expertise, but maybe a roof, maybe some other things like that, HVAC, hot water heater, that starts adding up. And it's a lot more significant than if you're just doing your 27-year divided.
Yeah, and so those lifespans they use, no idea.
You paid somebody to do it.
Yeah, how long the roads last, how long the utility infrastructure lasts. I mean, those are just some examples off the top of my head. And I think when I looked at one of those schedules, it's kind of surprising how quickly they can depreciate it, just depending on what it is.
Right.
So like you're saying, if you're 27 and a half years, think about it like this. We're generally having to have some form of road work done within that time period.
Right.
Like the lifespan of the road is arguably for how high quality where the road is, like what the temperatures are like, it could be a lot less than that.
Right.
So it really just depends.
It makes sense. Like there's a lot of things in the house that are not a simple 27 years. So it does make sense. Anything else you want to talk about related to
The depreciation or anything? I mean, if you're looking to get into parks and you're going to be a GP, then definitely make sure you have a good CPA or somebody to advise you ahead of time, because the other moving part with mobile home parks is, as much as you're probably going to get into the rental business a little bit with park-owned homes. So those are homes that the community owns, or you as an individual owner, if you buy a community just in your name. I don't know all the aspects of that either, because, I'm not a CPA, but that's a different structure depending on how you're selling and doing things, renovating them. You just want to make sure that structure could be vastly different than the depreciation for the property, and making sure that you're checking all those boxes too. So
it's one of those things where it really pays to pay.
because you're renovating this goes back to the depreciation. If you're renovating a home and it's an expense that's a couple of grand, they're expanding it over 20 years or whatever that is, but it can be written off immediately because it's not actually IRS agrees that it's this time frame, and that's quite a bit that you could be losing at. Like they have 15 homes, over 15 homes.
Right.
So
that's great. Now going back to a little bit about, we touched on this a little bit with talking about doing a lot of stuff yourself in the early flips and that kind of stuff. In your investing world with, maybe not the most clear, you're not getting a check every 2 weeks kind of thing. What are some like personal finance things you want to talk about that you've you felt like you've had to develop to hone to make it in this industry? Because I think it could be scary if you don't have something consistent coming in, and that you might want to just go and get a regular job.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to need me as a podcast guest. We're going to cover everything on this one. But I would say, so I believe it was Matt Fairclough. He had talked about, this was years ago, when he was doing his business, he did the 30-30-30, which was, when you get a profit from a flip, you have 30% that you set aside for taxes, 30% that you live off of, and ideally not that much.
Mm-hmm.
And then 30% that you invest back in your business to grow it.
Okay.
So I just always operate from the perspective of similar manner. And then that portion that you live off of, I try to save even more. So I would set budgets and try to make everything automated from where you're saving. So like you have a check hit.
Sure.
I used to have a W-2 job for a short period of time.
Yeah. That.
Yes. So I would have it set. So I did my budget of what my expenses were. I had it automatically go to a savings account. I think this is a big thing, because if you see it, you're going to spend it.
Right.
And so you have that go to this other account. And then from there, it's like, okay, I have $4,000 in my account this month, and I know my expenses are going to be $3,500. I give myself that $500 wiggle room. I'll still make it a game to try to save that $500.
I like it.
And maybe even more if you can. So it's really just about cutting back and that.
That makes sense. And then, worst case scenario, like if you have some extra savings and things get a little bit lean down the line, that you could, maybe go into that a little bit. Ideally not. What about one thing about you? I hope you don't mind me sharing, is that you are a new father this time. I mean, how's that been, adjusting to life with a kid now?
Very difficult. I've had to cut back quite a bit, at least for this phase of his life.
Yeah.
I would like to do a little bit more than where I am right now, but it's been great to watch him grow, but it makes it hard for doing everything that you probably really need to do.
Yeah.
That is definitely a challenge.
I think that I was sharing this with another friend a while back. It's just like the level my brain can like function and like just be productive. Just
yeah, let get out.
The sleep, and I think it's just you have more on your plate, and like I think there's just more. It's harder to come home after a day of work. It's now. Obviously, as a realtor, I need to get offers in and things like that, but it definitely different. It's just different, and I think it's a slower pace. I was noticing this too, with my recent trying to get this podcast going and setting goals for myself and everything. I feel like I was had to just be okay with not being able to be completely hyper focused on this at all times, and it just took a lot longer. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have time to think about it, to process it, to chew on it, to plan it, to, figure things out as quickly as something that might have taken me a couple weeks before took, a couple months.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty big. Not just some of the stuff that, like you're saying, you'd have been able to focus on or maybe perfect a little bit. You just have to kind of get it done. And that's been kind of a pro, like for me, I'm someone who overthinks things. We talked a little bit about my thoughts on everything with what I'm trying to work on projects wise. And, I mean, I'm the type of person who wants everything to be perfect. So when you don't have the time, you can't be.
And I think having children makes you have to be okay with not perfect.
Yeah.
It is a mess most of the time. What about other things that you do in your life to like unwind, to for your mental health, like anything that you do to kind of, for physical fitness or anything like that? Is there stuff that's important to you to kind of keep your mind right so you can be optimal in your day to day?
Yeah, I think exercising is huge. That's been tough with having a newborn. So I'm still just getting into that routine again. That makes a huge difference. If you're very busy and you don't have much time, then just the mental clarity you have is a huge difference. Eating well and making sure you're getting I would say 8 hours of sleep, but hasn't happened for.
Oh man, yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
And so, other than that, I mean, I think just having good friends and stuff to talk to and hang out with is kind of the big thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you could give somebody your best real estate investing advice possible. I know that's like a huge question to boil down into one little thing, but is there something that you could say, this is my best in real estate investing advice?
That's really tricky. Because there's so many things that I think would be really beneficial. But if I had to frame it towards realtors, I would say that the amount of time when I was doing more of that work, that someone was like, I wish I could do that, or I'm trying to start doing that soon. We were friends too.
Yeah.
I need to save up a little bit more money, or when the market's right. I think the thing is just, my personal opinion is learn 80% and then do it. So if education is a limitation, go to that benchmark and then do it. And if you feel like money's the limitation, then you need to not just shut down, think of other solutions for that, of how you can overcome the money hurdles, a partnership, business, loan,
Yeah. I know when I first got into the investing side of the, space, like the idea of a hard money loan sounded like I was going to go to like Al Capone. It sounded really scary. And then that's obviously not the great, especially we were coming from like a Dave Ramsey, like pay off our debt kind of like world or mindset. And that's like the complete opposite. But I think, the more you learn, the more you get into stuff, the more you realize, if there's an opportunity there, you do the math, it's a temporary thing. It can work.
Yeah. I think people need to think about, they likely have some kind of asset. They either know somebody, or the other beaten up story that I say a lot that I'm probably going to be, my kids are older and be like, oh, here you go. It's talking about this story. And is the first deal I did by myself, I had that partnership thing going on with my parents, but the first one I did by myself, I used my car as collateral.
Okay.
So think about what you have that could be an asset that you can leverage. Obviously don't put your car up or anything that's going to put you in a bad position. If you don't know what you're doing, you haven't educated yourself first. You need to make sure, I would say the biggest hurdle is your first deal, but it's also the biggest hurdle because it needs to be, in my opinion, one of your better deals, because you don't know what you don't know. And so if you're doing the numbers and you think it's going to be a 30 grand profit and you've got, I don't know, you want to be more conservative is the point of that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Having the multiple exit strategies is good. That's how my brain always works with these kind of things, looking if this doesn't work and you can go this way and all that. And I think with realtors too, I think, it's often easy to want to go straight to your, your dream house and your dream car and all that kind of stuff. And because at times you can make good money, it's not consistent. And so I think um, building up, so I've built a strong business. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to be real that, I have a strong business. Like things have been good, but there was 6 months of like I sold a couple lot,
Yeah.
and then taxes hit and everything just got drained. And then we were not used to having to live off of my wife's income. And, maybe one day she won't work. And it's just, it's a real thing to try to build up, don't make your life so expensive that you can't sustain the slower times. And with that, I was going to get to like buying houses to live in that, if you can't afford a rental, buying a house to live in that you can make into a rental later is a great idea. Even if you're not house hacking where you're, renting out a room, you get that, 5% down conventional loan and, maybe do that 3 times before you go to your dream house. Then you got a little bit of a rental portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, there's people out there, they just do that. They stay in a house for 2 years. What is it, 2 out of 5 or something like that? I don't know what it is. Check with your accountant again or whatever about the tax benefits of that. But it's like you don't pay capital gains taxes on it up to a certain amount.
If you sell it then.
Yeah. If you sell it with them,
Right.
what is it,
I think it's
2 out of 5, something like that. Those are all strategies too you could use. I know of an older builder where I am that's what he did for like.
Yeah, builders love that one. I mean, I think it's hard at a certain point to move your family around and everything, but builders definitely do. It's a great way, good strategy for sure. Let's go into some rapid fire questions. Do you have like your favorite book ever? It doesn't have to be real estate investing related, but it can be.
Well, right now what sticks out to me is Who Not How,
Who Not How. Okay.
because I'm sure there's others, but that one pops up in my head, and it's kind of focused right now on the business. We've hired some people and it's made a huge difference in the amount of work done. So I would say,
Okay, so that's about hiring people to. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
essentially the solution is who do you need to hire to fix the problem, not how do I fix the problem.
I like it. What about your best deal you've ever completed
Best deal I've ever completed.
or favorite, most memorable?
Most memorable.
You pick.
Which route do I want to go? I would say the most memorable is that first deal, and it's just because it was such an absolute bear. It definitely wasn't the best deal.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that. It was 100% not the best deal. But I learned so much, and I would never, ever do anything again that way because there was so much pain in some of that things. Like,
But you're thankful you went through it, I would imagine.
kind of,
I mean, you wish you would have learned.
I wish I would have gone through it. I wish I would have just not done that.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know what's not to do. I guess you got an education.
Exactly.
Cool hard knock there a little bit. I guess that kind of is similar to the next question, though. Like your biggest mistake, one of the things we had a best like learning outcome from.
I would say that to piggyback on that one is one of the things that I'm trying to do more is learn from other people. So partnerships are pretty huge.
Yeah.
It lets you scale better. You got to be really careful about the partners that you pick, but it's not just the financial kind of, pulling resources together and having that benefit. It's more of like other person's connections, their knowledge and everything, how they do things. Something as simple for me is like, I would overthink a lot of things going back to how I wanted everything to be perfect. And so when I would send an email, it'd take me way too long trying to make everything perfect. Well, by having partnerships and doing other work with other people, seeing how they operated, like I just learned to send it out quick and change some of those habits that were actually causing a lot of stalls on my time.
No, that's huge. I think partnerships, all that kind of stuff, just saves you tons of learning time and growth. Like I think, that's for real estate sales, like, trying to do things like other people have done them already. It's just, yeah, it's gold. And being, I think if we want to break into that a little bit deeper, I think one of the things that I attribute some of my success to is that I get excited about your wins. I don't get threatened by them. I'm sure I'm human. There's people that are going to like,
get on this.
Yeah, I'm human. If I see you as a rival or something, maybe I'll be, mad of your success or something. But I think overall, like, with my friend, like I get really excited and I'm, sharing their joy. I try to.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of mentality really helps you, opens doors. Like, I mean, if you're able to be excited with somebody, they're going to want to talk about it with you. So you're going to learn. They might want to work with you on the next thing that they do, as opposed to somebody who would be threatened by it and then would just be talking crap about,
and then you don't want to work with them.
Yeah, you don't want to be around the person kind of thing.
Yeah, come on my next deal. Maybe I'll proof on it.
Well, I mean, this has been really good. I've really enjoyed. I think we got into some of the history that you've had with investing. I think that we, got into the syndication world a lot because honestly, like I've been a realtor for 10 years. I've been a co-host of a blank on the word,
Real estate meetup.
Yeah, for a while, but I don't think I really understood the syndication world. We've had guests talk about it, and it was sometimes just a little bit, because it is complicated, but it really boils down. It's a win-win. So I think that was really good that we could talk about that a little bit more. Is there any way you'd want people to connect with you? Is there any social media platforms, or if they're
they're welcome to reach out. The best place is probably LinkedIn.
Okay. Chase Lauderback.
I honestly don't even know. I mean, if you look me up on LinkedIn, you should be able to find me. But yeah,
You're so professional.
Yeah, happy to chat anytime about that. I need to work on an Instagram and stuff like that, but I don't really.
Yeah, no worries. But I mean, I know there's some great connections to be made on LinkedIn for sure. I don't think I remember how to get found. I'll work on that.
I'll have a podcast soon if you want to watch.
Yeah.
DVD.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Investor Podcast, where we talk about wealth and holistic health. If you enjoy our content, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to hear new episodes every Thursday. If you really like our content, you can follow us on social media at The Wealthy Investor, wealthy spelled W-E-L-L-T-H-Y.